morning, everybody. This is Frankie, and this is the Francesco Abbruzzino Lose and Talk Show. It's a new day, fresh week, new start. Lots of news happening over the weekend. Did want to cover a few things, and it's funny. I have individuals out there, and this weekend I had some troll that came on, and she's like, you know what? This is disgusting, and I really do not like you, and this is ridiculous that you're a traitor. You're not a U.S. citizen. You should be kicked out of the country. All because I made a comparison. I put up a picture that shows Adolf Hitler in 1933 or something like that, saying, I am not a dictator. Then Castro, I think it was 69, I'm not a dictator. And Obama, basically with the same pose, saying, I'm not a dictator. And that's all I put up there. Yet she came on and criticized me. Now, and my simple question back to her was, look, I'm a veteran of the United States Navy. I served our country. Me going in and during the Persian War is helped you to keep your freedoms. It enables you to have that freedom of speech, of which you're using to tell me that you want to vomit on me, which she did state she wanted to vomit on me. She came back and just said, you're probably Italian, which I am of Italian heritage. My dad did immigrate here, but I am an American. I mean, I think I sound pretty American. And, here's the issue. What's more treasonous? Me doing a simple comparison, of which I would do with Bush or a Republican if I saw it, or the fact that she is upset because I am calling Obama out for his treasonous activity, his activity against the Constitution, taking away our rights. He's killed how many millions of people around the world with his global warfare? Why am I un-American for questioning a guy that's taken away all my rights, a guy that's spying on me? But that's the left for you. They only see through one glass, not unlike many of the people on the far right. I mean, come on. It's fine to be a Democrat and to stand by your guy, but when he's wrong, he's wrong. Just like when I'm more to the right, when my guys are wrong, they're wrong, and I'm going to call them out on it. Good examples, somebody said, oh, your news is, you're supposed to be unbiased, it's leaning too much to the right. First of all, show me a news station that's not leaning too far to the left or right. MSNBC, left. Fox, right. NBC, left. So first I say bull crap on that. Second thing, I've always said I'm more leaning to the right. All right? I mean, obviously, whatever my views are, they're going to play into this. And I don't see myself as a news agency. I see myself as someone that's trying to get the truth out there. Someone that's trying to affect change by communicating what I feel my perception is of the truth. And I'll try to put everything out there. I mean, I can tell you, in terms of Republicans, blue bloods, I think our two guys running for governor, Governor Scott, the current governor, and Chris, they're both idiots. They're both scam artists. They're both schmucks. Untrustworthy, scandalous. I would not want either in the office. But unfortunately, we have a two-party system, and those are my only two options. I am not a fan of either of them. They're both idiots. But hey, such is life. I got to deal with the cards that are handed to me. I've said many times on this show, I wish we had something better than a two-party system. But it's ridiculous to hear some of the commentary on there, like this lady saying, I'm going to vomit on you. You're not a citizen. You ought to be, you're treasonous. And it's like the vitriol. Where does it come from? But it's simply amazing. I usually like to start my show off with a video, which we're going to do right now. We'll go into that. Oh, well, no. Let's do this. We'll skip the video today. We're going to go straight into the national debt. We're going to talk a little bit about the debt and how it's grown by the trillions in the last 12 months. And this is basically, it's been growing. It's not something new, but within the last 12 months, it's been even worse. And it's what's really rotten to the core here is how Obama's been out there basically stating that he's got the deficit under control. And how people like Obama continue to just go out there and say one thing that's a complete lie because they think you're going to believe it. They think if they say it, the American people are going to buy into it. And in large part, that's what's happening. Bush does it too. Everyone. They go out there and they spit half-truths or what they want to be communicated, and they believe, hey, the mighty Obama said it, so they're going to believe it. I mean, the whole idea that the Obama administration has a budget that's under control is a complete and utter lie, folks. The government, the federal government, has officially run a deficit of $589 billion for the first 11 months of 2014. And we're talking about the annual budget for government, which is through October, I think it starts a new one. But this number is just for public consumption because it relies on accounting tricks, folks, and it's massively understated. You have to go to the true numbers, which are on the U.S. Treasury website. The U.S. national debt has actually grown by more than $1 trillion in less than 12 months. We continue to wildly run up debt as if there's no tomorrow. And by doing so, we're destroying the future of our nation, the future of our kids. And it needs to get under control. It's not sustainable. All these entitlements, not sustainable. All this foreign policy where we go out and give billions of dollars, $5 billion to Syrian rebels is unsustainable. The same Syrian rebels that have declared a ceasefire and declared to work hand in hand with ISIS. The utter stupidity is amazing, folks. This debt bubble, it's one of the greatest in the history of the world, but very few people seem to have any desire to do anything about it. We literally are going broke, folks. And most Americans seem fine with it, or they just don't get it. They don't understand it. And perhaps that's because we have never really experienced such a serious consequences before. But when it comes to running a debt, a day of reckoning is coming. And it's just going to be like Greece, if not worse. And I've said before, especially if they pull out and we're no longer the reserve currency. And we have to institute austerity because we have to start paying bills. The insane spending policies of Obama and the Congress are hastening the day when our day of reckoning will arrive. I mean, here's a couple facts from this one article. The U.S. national debt's increased by more than $7 trillion since Barack Obama's taken in the White House. The debt is more than 5,000 times larger than it was when the Federal Reserve was established back in 1913. The U.S. national debt has reduced to a stack of $1 bills. It would circle the earth at a quarter 45 times. Not sure what they mean by that fact. You should be disturbed by this, folks, and I hate to... I think most of the common folk out there will say, hey, it's not going to my dollar, I don't feel it. And they don't realize the impact it has on them through entitlement programs, through, primarily through the entitlement programs. Or through just services that the government offers that they won't be able to offer anymore because they're giving all this money out to these different programs. You know, Thomas Jefferson, he once said that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is but a swindle, a futurity in large scale. What are we doing to our future generations? It's almost absolutely unconscionable that we're doing this to our kids. We're stealing trillions upon trillions of dollars for our kids and our grandkids. And we are willing to consign them to a lifetime of debt slavery. I can't imagine what the economy will be like when my kids are my age. I've said it before. I'll say it again because it bears repeating. If future generations get the chance, they will look back and curse at us. They'll curse at us for what we have done. The shame that we bring upon our kids. Anyone that would dare to suggest that we should continue to run up this debt for our future generations to repay it is ridiculous. But there are many out there that are saying that, folks. Government debt is far from the only massive debt bubble that we are dealing with as a country. 40 years ago, the total amount of debt in our nation, all government and business debt and individual debt, was sitting at $2.3 trillion. Today, it has grown to over $59.4 trillion. And this is not anywhere close to being sustainable, folks. Think about it. But most Americans don't seem to care, or they don't get it. They're too dumbed down by reality TV. They just continue to spend recklessly, adding up even more debt. But there are signs. There are signs that this is changing and that we're starting to hit the wall with all this debt. An astounding 35% of all Americans have debts that are overdue, that they've been referred to collection agencies. Why is that? Thank you to the government for encouraging and saying it's un-American if you're not out there spending yourself into debt to build up the economy. Our economy has basically become an ocean of red ink, from sea to shining she. And the only way to keep this bubble from bursting is for the total amount of debt to continue to grow much faster than the overall economy is growing. Obviously, this cannot happen indefinitely, folks. And when this house of cards come crashing down, it's going to be horrific. It's going to be horrific, folks. You're going to see the writing like you see in Greece, but tenfold. It's scary. So the big question is, how long our bubble economy is going to last for before we see that finally collapse? It's gotten to the point where even some of the biggest banks in the world are admitting that there's an issue and it's unsustainable. Yet we don't see any action out there. Essentially, our current system has been dying a very slow death and running out of steam. And like I said, most Americans have no idea that they're living in this giant debt-fueled bubble with a limited lifespan. Most Americans, they just run along assuming that since the politicians tell them everything is okay, everything is all right because they said it. They're so honest. But every single day, our debt gets even larger and larger. Our financial long-term problems get worse and worse. And someday this bubble's going to burst. It's just a matter of time, and we need to wake up. We need to take action. Because if we don't, nobody will, folks. Nobody's going to be there for us. Nobody's going to hold our hand through this economy. And that brings up the next question. And that's Obama's economy. What's it doing to us? Is it spin or is it reality? And I'm here to tell you it's spin. And unfortunately, it's spin that's going to get us in trouble. Whenever he gives his speeches, like in Milwaukee, he turns the limelight on himself. How great he is, how great he's done for the economy, how great his fudged numbers are. By almost any measure, the American economy and the American worker might be better off when he took office. Well, he says they're better off when he took office. In contrast, the Census Bureau reports that the median household income, adjusted with inflation, is down by more than $2,000 since he took office. That's due to Obamacare limiting the hours, limiting the amount of pay out there, the increased health care cost, the inflation rate. Everyone, if you watch this show, the inflation rate's not 1.5% like the government tells you because they're cherry picking numbers. It's more like 7 or 10%. Go to the store. Prove me wrong. Go visit the store, and you'll see I'm right. As an indicator of the economic downturn, a sixth of the U.S. population is currently receiving food stamps, and that's sad. It's scary. An increase in the participation of the SNAP program is at 61% since Obama's taken office. Our economy has a real GDP growth rate of $1.5 trillion. And that's in the recovery. That's if you compare that to the average of the post in the 1960s, it's gotten pretty worse, folks. How about jobs? Jobs, 5.7 million. They say the unemployment rate's what, 6.25, 6.5. It's really like 13%. Because the way they choose to measure it. You got poor job creation, and the household income growth is weak because the jobs that are out there are low-paying jobs. Primarily due to Obamacare. Inflation. 3 Federal Reserve banks, they've released business surveys that confirm what many of us already knew. We already predicted that the new health law is discouraging a significant number of firms from hiring. And they're also pushing workers to part-time status versus full-time to avoid the health care coverage. Obama may think the American economy and the American worker are better off under his watch, and he may continue to spew out that lie that he calls the truth. But the American public appears to be under no illusion. We know it's not that great. We know the economy is in trouble. And bottom line, after more than 5 years of his Obamonomics, the ill-designed growth programs that drain job creation, money out of the private sector, the shovel-ready boondoggle, you guys remember that one, the bailouts of the political cronies that transferred capital from productive to non-productive, the boom in welfare spending, the hundreds of billions in stimulus spending, all the ill-fitting pieces came together to produce a record-breaking $7 trillion in additional federal debt. And we should be concerned, folks, for our kids' future, for our future. We need to take control of it. We'll be right back. Get some of this great apparel from theroguerant.com or the Uncensored Report or thevinicescoop.com. We have hats, shirts, coffee mugs. They say educate, inspire, and change. Or for my Scoop fans, it'll say the Venice Scoop, Sarasota Scoop, etc. Help me with this operation so I can continue to get a fresh perspective on the news out to the masses. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. Just go to my website and click on the icon. Hey everybody, this is Frankie, and I'm here today to introduce Longevity. It's a great nutritional supplement to anybody that's eating right or not eating right. I take supplements on a regular basis, and Longevity cannot be beat, especially at some of the great price points. So go to theroguerant.com or the uncensoredreport.com and click on shop. Go down to Longevity, click on it, and you'll be helping out the operations of the station so that we can continue to bring you a fresh perspective on alternative news. Longevity, check it out today. All right, and some things I should have said in the beginning, and I forgot it. Monday I get distracted. A few things, house cleaning. I do run these ads. They're revenue generating and revenue sharing, and I think I've sold a couple of things, maybe made like $5-10, but it'd be great to go in there. I'm trying to keep it primarily free, and as I started a program this weekend where basically it asks for volunteer donations and where I can try to keep it free with minimum advertising. And it also will enable me to continue to update my Scoop pages and my international and national pages because it's just so time consuming. I have to bring in an assistant to do it, and which means I have to try to raise some funds. I figure about $20,000 a year or something like that. So that's the objective right now that's out there. If you've seen that on my website or on any of my Facebook or Twitter pages or LinkedIn. In regards to the show, it is a one-man operation. It is free. I basically have done this free for 5 years. I do everything for this show. I do all the prep. I do all the technical aspects, all the hosting, all the research. I think I did take in a volunteer, and I can't mention her name. She asked me not to, who helped purchase the software for $200, which is enabling me to do this broadcast through here. The rest of it's basically been out of my own pocket, spending all my own money and my own time. Let's go back to the news, though. You're not here to hear about Frankie Abbruzzino, are you? And we're staying on Obama, and basically we're going to talk about his sinking ship because his agenda, his way of doing business is just destroying not only the economy, which I just covered, but America as a whole. Recently we had the rising clamoring over the beheading of 2 Americans, and just this weekend, the British guy. Obama's been faced with sinking poles because of his inability to handle these issues. He seems to be very aloof. Just after the last beheading of, I think it was Foley, he gave a conference, and 2 minutes later he's out on the golf course enjoying a day of golf. So how is he going to deal with this? From not having a strategy to having a strategy of arming the rebels. His presidency is sinking. It's sinking fast. He could soon pass the point of no return, and I think he's already past that. Especially with this latest round where he had no strategy, and then he came up with a strategy to provide the rebel Syrians, what he deems moderate, with $5 billion in weapons and funding. And yet they're walking and working and warring and gunning and going after the Syrian army hand in hand with ISIS. His whole second term has been just a string of disasters, folks. From Obamacare's lies to his economic growth violent breakdown globally of casting doubt on his stewardship. 6 years into this tenureship, and it's a joke. It's laughable. The magic of his rhetoric is long gone. He can no longer give his excellent speeches to work his way out of this treacherous situation. And not just because the public has turned on him. They've turned on him because he's made up their mind. The public has made up our minds on him. They no longer trust him. They don't think he's a good leader. And we should not have these people from the extreme left that come out and call you a traitor. Say they want to vomit on you. Say you're un-American and you shouldn't be an American because you're coming out and calling this guy out for all the bad that he's doing to our country. It's ridiculous that someone would say they want to vomit on me and that I'm a treasonous and that I shouldn't be a citizen or I'm not a citizen just because I am questioning the president. And I tell you what, I'll question any Republican that gets into office. I question John Boehner all the time. I don't hear her saying anything about that. I question the Patriot Act that Bush put in. I don't see her saying anything about that. She's fine with that, but if you touch Obama, whoa, watch out. Barbara gets upset. They feel, you know what, what's most ominous about this guy is that the public feels less safe than they did when he took office. They know the war on terror isn't over, yet Obama keeps saying it is, and that he won't even call this group ISIS a terrorist group. That's what I mean when he goes out and he says one thing that's totally defies logic. He's granting amnesty to millions. He wants to grant amnesty to millions of illegal immigrants. It's just so that he can get more Democratic votes. And he's going to do it after the election so he doesn't feel the wrath of the public. Forget the fact that they're taking our jobs. Forget the fact that we're paying $13,000 per student in the school and the federal government's not helping. Forget the fact that we now got a respiratory virus that was probably brought here by them, spreading throughout the United States. Forget the fact that we're supplying them with homes and food and health care. Forget all that, right? His worldview, his politics, his prejudice, his habits, they've been a mismatch for our country. They work great in a socialist society, but not in America. He's been a dud. Even in one area where he seemed to be a lock, racial relations. Only 10% of the race relations have improved. 35% of the people say they've gotten worse. And they have because this guy is a race baiter. Oh, race baiter, folks. All this is shocking. I don't know if it's surprising. It's shocking. But hey, when he ran for president, he was a junior senator. Many out there said he wasn't ready. We all knew he wasn't ready. But he was this great orator that said what the masses wanted. Entitlements. I'm here. I'm your guy. It's going to be a fantasy to think that he will master his last couple years. It's going to be horrific. You know, the lasting image will be of him yucking it up out on the golf course. After giving a speech about James Foley, and now the revelations that are coming out by his parents saying that they were threatened by the State Department if they raised ransom or said anything to the press. This guy's ridiculous. Our enemies, our adversaries, surely realize they will never face a weaker president. And that's what we did with Carter. Iran knew he was weak, and they took this action. They must assume that the next president-in-chief is going to be stronger, so they need to push through what they want now under this weak president. Putin, Iran, China, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and many other numbers of terrorists and nations out there know they have 2 years to make the moves and advance their interest with Obama. Because they know after that, it's going to end. But will it? You know, that's the question. Will it? You got a lot of talk, a lot of conversations taking place today about Hillary. She wants to be president. She wants to run. I don't know if she will be any weaker than Obama. I don't think she will. I think she'll be as weak. I don't know if she'll be weaker. She definitely won't be stronger. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. And then you got the judge Napolitano. He came out this weekend talking about our founding fathers, how they would turn in their graves because of Obama's unconstitutional, murderous behavior. Do you know how many millions of people, I think they put the total 2 million Iraqis have been killed due to our activity, our actions over in that government. And the government is destroyed. We didn't help build that nation. We went in, we destroyed it, we've taken resources, and we've killed. You don't hear about that. It's okay for America to go in and bomb and carpet bomb these places and kill because we're doing it in the name of America. But what is America all about anymore? Our founding fathers would be turning in their graves at a lot of our liberties that have been taken away. Obama and Bush, both, set precedents. Their actions basically dictated that they could continue to erode our liberties and act outside the Constitution by many of their actions. And what's happened with our government has succeeded in terrifying Americans into believing they sacrificed their liberties, they would somehow be safer. Do you feel any safer after the Patriot Act? The act that opened the front door to losing all of our privacy? Some of the things that Bush did on his own have been done by Barack, and he's using the fact that Bush did it so I can do it. The next president will be able to simply point at Obama and say, he did it, so I can do it. It's a snowballing of authoritarianism. When a president does something and it becomes precedent, meaning there's no blowback, Congress didn't do or will not say anything, then future presidents will step up and say, I can do the same thing. They're fixed on surveilling Americans and getting away with it. In many circles, Snowden's a hero because he brought all these revolutions to light. And he's an enemy to the state because he's told us about what our government's doing to us, how they're taking away our liberties. Now, because of this, our children, our grandchildren will go up in a society and never know privacy that we have known. Who wants to live in an America where the government behaves like a Stasi in East Germany, like the KGB in the Soviet Union? All of which we waged this Cold War against to stop. Think about it, folks. Be strong. Take action. Tell them enough is enough.
Is your money manager giving you safety and security? Wouldn't you like to make your money work harder for you? Then you should consider joining philsgang.com, where thousands of individual investors have successfully profited.
This year I'm up 60% on my portfolio. Following your system has been fantastic. I've been with you for about a month and a half now, and I'm already up 7%.
I've been in the business for a long time, and you're really one of the best I've ever heard.
Well, I just want to let you know what a great teacher you are.
For over a decade, philsgang.com's Phil Grandy and Donald Cogswell have been teaching, coaching, and investing right along with all Phil's Gang members.
I want to thank Donnie for market wrap. I bought 2,500 shares of AUI and sold it this morning at $820 profit.
Why not join thousands of satisfied Phil's Gang customers today? Go to philsgang.com, philsgang.com, or call 877-600-4264. That's 877-600-4264. Call today.
All right, folks, we're back, and we're going to talk about the military-industrial complex. And what is war? How are war hawks and this military-industrial complex connected? Follow the money. That's the advice that's been given to informants back during the Watergate break-in. Follow the money. The suggestions still sound, folks. and follow the financial connection between pro-war pundits and defense contractors, the relationship they have, and you will find some interesting information. From President Obama's promise to degrade and ultimately defeat ISIS, to the ubiquitous appearance of former generals on cable news shows, all calling for the U.S. military response an alleged threat. The war drums are constantly beating. The neocons, the blue-blooded Republicans, are always out there. McCain, Graham, they want to go out and wage war. But why? The promotion from former brass to send to the armed forces to combat ISIS came as retired Marine General Zinni, who reportedly recommended putting as many as 100,000 boots on the ground in Iraq, using special forces or CIA operatives. Similar suggestions are made by other generals like Jack Keane, who recommends offensive airstrikes. But why? Why are generals put out to pasture longing for the glory of battle? Is it not newsworthy? Why aren't people reporting it? What's interesting is their ties, these hawks, to the manufacturers of military-grade material, the military-industrial complex. And what would appear to be that the war on terror is less than a foreign policy trajectory and more of a marketing technique, a marketing tactic of immense military-industrial intelligence complex. And the corps of congressmen that act as salesmen, staking new territories for the deadly manufactured inventory of the defense contractors. That's all they are. These congressmen are out there basically selling a war so that they can sell product and make money for that military-industrial complex, the defense industry. Think about it. The expansion of this market makes money, much of which finds its way into their campaign coffers. It's concerning. I'm concerned. You should be concerned. I mean, there are other examples. There's all over out there. The question that is relevant, though, given the bloody results of the recommendations made by these retired generals, is whether the media should feel compelled to disclose the corporate connections. But that will never happen now, will it? Hence where alternative media comes in. Hence why many of the politicians want to shut down and silence alternative media. One of the country's most prominent news outlets, the New York Times, relies on information that comes from the study of war, ISW. So how honest and upfront do you think they're going to be? If we are to retain the freedoms that remain, Americans must read and heed the words of the first president, George Washington, father of this country. He said, to avoid the plague of perpetual war, Washington warned against foreign alliances, attachments, and intrigues. He declared that a lasting peace comes only from avoiding meddling in foreign armed conflicts and from promoting virtue in the citizenry, a peaceful country. Why do we have to meddle in everybody else's business? Why? It has not been good business for us. It's gotten us hated throughout the world. He also recommended that we avoid at all costs becoming the victim of tools and dupes who would destroy liberty. This guy was ingenious. Military-industrial complex, folks. Think about it. Think about their ties to the politicians. Think about what they're doing to our country. We'll be right back. 1-800-PET-MEDS. Yes, get your pet essentials, your medicines, your collars, everything you need online. Guess what? You'll be supporting the operations of this great station, the Uncensored Report. So go to my website, click on the icon for 1-800-PET-MEDS, and help us continue the information war that's going on out there. Hey everybody, have you thought about fluoride, how it's dumbing us down? Why don't you give Fluoride Shield a try? Or how about Survival Shield to help you get the iodine that's been taken out of our salts? Give both of these products a try. Just go to theroguerat.com or theuncensoredreport.com. Click on my shop area and click on the InfoWars icon. It'll good credit operation and help us continue to get the message out there. Have a great day. All right, folks. Now, where would we be if we didn't talk about ISIS? ISIS is all over the news. It's having a big impact. It's going to have a major impact on all of us. So it's a conversation we need to have. And we're going to discuss Obama's Islamic State silver lining. He seems to think that the Muslim world, that this is a good thing, that this is a good silver lining, because the Muslim world will see what the extremists are like, and they'll snuff them out for us. They'll do our heavy lifting. Isn't that nice of them? He's decrying that the death and the violence that ISIS has brought across Syria and Iraq are actually silver linings. Speaking at a Democratic fundraiser, surprise there, right, over the weekend, he said that ISIS, in their sheer brutality, should convince the rest of the Arab world that Islamist extremists are bad for the Muslim faith and they should be confronted and defeated. Because they don't realize that now. They don't know that now. What else is a silver lining in this terrible mayhem that ISIS has brought throughout the region? It has focused the attention on the fact that you have these extremist elements in the Muslim world. So Obama's out there basically selling it as a good thing. Is it a good thing? Is it a silver lining? Obama's war. No immediate threat. No authorization. No problem. You know, he made his case to us about the nation's security and how it depended on decisive military action against ISIS. You had the Times come out. They published a front page story announcing America's intelligence agencies have concluded that ISIS poses no immediate threat to the United States. The president conceded as much when he outlined his plan for building an international coalition to degrade and ultimately destroy this network. Yet we're going to war with them. While we have not declared and we have not detected any specific plotting against us on the homeland, ISIS leaders continue to threaten us as they always have. In comes the bombing. You know, a lot of things could happen, folks. A lot of things. But in the world's reigning superpower, us, the United States, and its allies can't possibly go to war to prevent everything from happening in this world. Even if the president is correct in determining a need to confront ISIS fighters in the Middle East, the apocalyptic pronouncements from members of Congress over the past few weeks, the magnified media reports over the perceived threat here in the homeland, leads one to believe that we're in peril and we need to get out there. Wednesday morning, hours before the president made his speech, Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, he said in his speech, we know of no credible threat from ISIL to the homeland. So why are we going over there? Because he wants to fight Syria. He wants Syria taken down. The rebels can't do it on their own. You know, look, to be sure, attacks on American overseas targets would be nothing to take lightly. But the possibility is always present, as the possibility the president cited, that terrorists will go after people with Western passports. But this is Obama's war. He doesn't even have full support. He says, we got a cross-section of nations that want to help us. I think he's got 9. Bush had something like 36, and Obama said, that's not global support, but 9 is. And one of our biggest allies with one of the largest armies, Turkey, doesn't even want anything in it. They're balking at supporting his strategy. Turkey's seeking a lower profile in the role. They want to be just virtually invisible. And they're working Obama overtime to get some concrete supportive commitments from the Turkish government. But look, Turkey doesn't want that involvement. They don't want ISIS coming over and attacking them. Right now, ISIS is working Turkey's agenda against Syria. They're walking past the borders in Turkey and Syria constantly. They're being treated in Turkish hospitals, the ISIS members. They're buying ISIS crude oil at discounted bargain basement prices. So they don't want America to attack them using their bases. Turkey's in a tough spot. They're one of the only Muslim countries out there that are a part of NATO. And they want to keep it low key. They don't want any issues with ISIS. They've already had recently protests throughout Turkey over Assad. He's not a popular president there. So he's already got internal issues. They could take part in this strike, Turkey, against ISIS. And then the risk of the backlash from the jihadists themselves will come into their country. Or Turkey could refuse to do anything, which will anger the Western allies. And then what's Turkey going to do? So they are in a tough spot. What do? In Obama's war. And what will the GOP do? Now, the GOP is trying to figure out what to do about his request to fund Syrian rebels that have ties to ISIS. Two Republican pathologies collided head on. The first is that their biological urge to oppose Obama no matter what he does that we have to oppose. The second is the House Republicans' chronic 11th hour melodramatics about keeping the government funded every September. They have to pass a continuing resolution to keep the government funded by September 30th, or the government will shut down. The two parties are mostly arguing over this export-import bank, which I've covered before, some of my concerns with it. But that was the pre-ISIS state of play. When they all saw the beheading of the U.S. citizens on video, it became a matter of urgency. Obama asked the Congress for $500 million to give to the Syrian rebels, which are fighting hand-in-hand with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda, with al-Nusra. But Congress was originally going to wait until next year to get around to that. But now the administration wants it. And it's part of a larger $2 billion request that would include money for operations in Iraq and Ukraine. Our money. Means less entitlements for you folks here that love the entitlements Obama's handing out. The House Republicans, they met on Thursday morning to discuss it. They need to figure something out. Something that will not bite them in the end when election time comes. Demand among some Republicans is greater action. They want troops on the ground. McCain, Graham. If Obama had proposed ground troops, they'd be hyperventilating about how scandalous it was. But in the back room, they'd be happy as hell. Obviously passing the $500 million is the quickest way possible. It sends a strong message to ISIS. But is it the right message? I don't think it is, folks. I'm here to tell you. In one of no, we're not going to cover that. Sorry, talking to something. Next is the contractors. I've already talked about the military-industrial complex. Are they going to cash in on the ISIS war? Of course they are. Of course they want us to go in there. But one thing, and I didn't discover until this article, this was from the Daily Beast. I always knew they were going to make money some way, the contractors. They always do. It's their next big meal ticket, But with this expanding war, Obama doesn't want to send U.S. troops in there. So how's he going to fight it? And now, something I didn't understand is that getting the contractors. Sending contractors in there, missionaries, to basically serve the role that our troops would serve. And it's an end around of putting troops into foreign nations. President Obama has asked Congress for $500 million to train new Syrian opposition out of Saudi Arabia. That would also fund his allies to help them fight terrorists and to bring in contractors. Do you realize in 2008 there were 242,000 contractors working in countries for the U.S. Central Command in Iraq, Afghanistan, Somalia, Pakistan, and Yemen? That was during the height of the last one. Now there's about 66,000. What are they all doing there? But this is only a fraction of the American privatized security apparatus operating overseas. The State Department spends billions a year on it. So it's big money. Of course the contractors want it, the militarized industrial complex. And what I've been saying that the moderate Syrian rebels signed this non-aggression pact with ISIS. It's a broad coalition. They want to work together to defeat Assad. So Obama's broad coalition seems a little bit more narrower. You don't have Turkey. The rebels he wants to fund just signed a non-aggression pact with ISIS. They're working hand in hand with al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda too. So you have two more crucial aspects of this strategy which appear to be faltering. Is this guy incompetent or what? Do you want to give $500 million to these moderate Syrian rebels and jihadists from the Islamic State that have agreed to a non-aggression pact for the first time with ISIS? The two troops will respect the truce until final solutions found. They promise not to attack each other because they want to go after their common enemy, Assad. Even Iraq. Look at Iraq. There's blowback already happening there. The newly installed U.S. friendly prime minister ordered his air force to halt strikes on civilian areas, even in those towns controlled by ISIS, against America's wishes. So let's sum it up about this broad coalition. Germany and the UK and Australia, part of the broad coalition, will not support airstrikes against ISIS in Syria. That's not too broad, is it? Turkey. We already told you about them. They're our closest NATO ally among the Middle East. Denies them any air-based launch sites. It's not going to happen. Iraq's. They're saying they're going to halt airstrikes against ISIS. The U.S. proxy boots on the ground. Syria's moderate rebels. They've signed this non-aggression truce with ISIS. But apart from that, everything's going great about this broad coalition. We're going to need a new strategy. While we're at that, can we get a new president? Food for thought. We'll be right back. Check out My Patriot Supply. They got the straw there. That straw is great. I tell you what, folks, you can go out and basically, if we're in a critical situation and there's a massive hurricane, there's no water, guess what? You use these straws, the life straw, out there in the pond, and it cleans out all the water and gets you filtered water. How can you beat it? Check it out. Check the product and much more and help support the operations at theuncensoredreport.com. Check out My Patriot. All right, sorry about that. I had to get a drink of water, and I didn't realize how much time I had on that. So, now we're going to talk about Obama again. Obama, he's like my major subject today. But now we're talking about his pledge to curb NSA mass surveillance. And has he? I don't know, folks. It just earned a 90-day blank check. Mass surveillance. This is just 9 months after the president promised action against the NSA spying. You have congressional inaction on it. The federal court, though, on Friday renewed an order allowing the government to collect phone records on virtually all calls made within the United States. The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court approved the Justice Department's request for another 90-day extension of their controversial mass surveillance. But most of you probably don't even know it, and most of you probably don't care because you're not doing anything wrong. You don't care if people listen in to your conversation. You don't care if you're John having an affair with Susie, they record that conversation and start blackmailing John, the judge. It doesn't bother you. This extension marks the third of its kind since Obama pledged in January to reform NSA spies. Where's that reform? He outlined a series of immediate steps to reform the government surveillance and boost transparency, but noted that he would wait for Congress to deliver him a bill ending this bulk U.S. calling surveillance. At the time, Obama said that the Attorney General and the intelligence community, he said, you guys need to get together and devise options for a new approach for this surveillance. But we've seen nothing. They have not acted. Obama's been silent on it. They've reinstated another 90 days. So it's been slow going, to say the least. In the absence of legislation, the courts have now renewed their collection of metadata. You know, the Republicans keep claiming that he's overstepping his constitutional bounds with this. They've even started a lawsuit, yet you see inaction. You did see Patrick Leahy introduce the U.S. Freedoms Act, which would effectively end the government collection and storage of data, but it's going nowhere. It's sitting idle, and they don't see a vote happening anytime soon. Again, more inaction by our senators. Now, I'm going to play this video of Ebola because Ebola continues to be a concern, folks. And let me see if I can get to that screen. Hold on one second. So I just wanted to play this video. I should have done better at getting it prepped. Here we go. Let me get you to the screen.
Top doctors and virologists are now confirming what InfoWars first reported over a month ago, which is that the Ebola virus has mutated, may have gone airborne, and could kill millions. In a piece for the New York Times today, Michael T. Osterholm, the director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, writes that an Ebola virus could mutate to become transmissible through the air. The current Ebola virus's hyper-evolution is unprecedented. There has been more human-to-human transmission in the past 4 months than most likely occurred in the last 500 to 1,000 years. Each new infection represents trillions of throws of the genetic dice, writes Osterholm. He continues, quote, "If certain mutations occurred, it would mean that just breathing would put one at risk of contracting Ebola. Infections could spread quickly to every part of the globe, as the H1N1 influenza virus did in 2009 after its birth in Mexico." Osterholm wants to know why more public health officials are not talking about the danger of Ebola becoming airborne. He cites a 2012 Canadian study which proved that Ebola could be transmitted through the air from pigs to monkeys. Of course, we were asking all these same questions over a month ago, and were called conspiracy theorists for doing so. Here's my appearance on Dick Morris's CBS radio show from August 6th.
One of the things that got my attention is that there is apparently a real disagreement between CDC in Atlanta, Center for Disease Control, and the Canadian health authorities on the question of whether Ebola can be spread by air, which obviously is key in terms of its capacity to be a serious epidemic. U.S. says no. Canada says it's very likely that it can be spread by air. Hasn't been completely proven, but remains a real likelihood.
That's right. There was a study in 2012 by Canadian scientists who found that at least to a limited degree, Ebola, this new strain of it, had gone airborne because they put monkeys and pigs in a pen separated by a barbed wire fence, so no actual physical contact. And most of the monkeys in that experiment got the Ebola virus. They inhaled it, got the respiratory syndrome, and died. So they concluded that it was airborne to a limited extent. And as you mentioned, Canada's top public health agency then said, I think the quote was, that it's strongly suspected that Ebola has gone airborne. Another question related to that is, why are these health workers, including the American experts, who know what precautions to take when dealing with Ebola patients, why are they becoming infected if they're supposedly, they have all the protective gear? There needs to be, obviously, a transmission of bodily fluids, but they're all becoming infected as well. So the question is, has Ebola gone airborne? That's the major threat.
The key question here is why so many health workers have been infected with the Ebola virus, despite the fact that they take extreme precautions to make sure they don't contract the virus through touching victims. Does this suggest that the virus is indeed airborne? The CDC has also urged airline staff to take steps to prevent the airborne spread of the virus, including giving suspected Ebola victims surgical masks, as well as directing staff to, quote, not use compressed air, which might spread infectious material through the air. The question of whether or not Ebola has gone airborne needs to be investigated, not by people like me, but by the experts themselves, although many of them are seemingly being held back from doing so by health authorities, including the CDC, who, as we have documented, are extremely reticent to give out any information on suspected Ebola victims in the United States. Remember also that if the Ebola virus was to hit the United States, the CDC and other health authorities would enact emergency procedures which could lead to healthy Americans who show no symptoms of the disease being forcibly detained for an indefinite period of time. In another development, a top German virologist caused shockwaves by asserting that the battle to halt the spread of Ebola in Sierra Leone and Liberia is being lost and that 5 million people will die. Jonas Schmidt-Chanasit of the Bernard Nocht Institute for Tropical Medicine in Hamburg told Germany's Deutsche Welle that hope is all but lost for the inhabitants of Sierra Leone and Liberia, and that the virus will only, quote, burn itself out when it has infected the entire population of these two countries and killed 5 million people. However, in a strange turn of events, just hours after our report was published on these comments, Deutsche Welle changed the headline of their article and removed many of the virologist's statements from the piece with no formal retraction. Whether this was part of a deliberate cover-up or merely an attempt to prevent panic is unknown, although again it underscores how nervous public health authorities and the media are in disseminating information about the Ebola virus. But again, top doctors, top virologists now indicate.
Okay, as you know, I've been staying on top of this whole Ebola issue since the beginning, and I continue to stay on it. I just think that was an interesting video. Has it or has it not gone airborne? What the virologist said, which I covered that article, I think, on Friday. All very interesting information. Something needs to be looked at, watched, and observed. I will not be having a show, I don't think, on Wednesday and Thursday. I will get you a confirmation on that. But tomorrow, definitely, 11 o'clock. We changed the times. We'll have the show out there, and we'll continue to educate and just inspire and change and try to affect change out there. So this has been Francesco Abbruzzino, or Frankie, as my friends like to call me. And I will see you tomorrow at 11.